I'm Alex Green and I'm 36 years old for 12 years. I've been running my real estate investment fund in downtown Seattle, while my family dismissed it as some silly online side gig at our monthly dinner in Bellevue. My sister splashed water right in my face, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Stop pretending to be the president. She sneered as the table erupted in laughter, their eyes full of that familiar contempt. I wiped my face calmly, pulled out my phone, and made the call. Cancel all $150 million in deals now. She froze, then rushed over, dropping to her knees. President, please don't. They had no idea the storm that was about to hit, unraveling everything they thought they knew. Before I dive in, if you've ever been belittled by family over your hidden successes, smash that like button and subscribe for more stories of turning the tables. Where are you watching from, and have you ever faced that kind of doubt? Let's see how this one plays out. 3 hours before that family dinner turned chaotic, I was in my office overlooking Lake Union in downtown Seattle, staring at the proposal on my desk. The rain tapped against the windows as I gathered my team for an urgent review of the $150 million deal. My assistant, Andrew Hale, handed out the folders while my CFO, Crystal Brooks, pulled up the financials on the screen. Joshua Wong, our legal counsel, sat ready with his notes on patents. We dove straight into the numbers. Crystal pointed out the inflated user metrics first. Their projections claimed exponential growth without any supporting data from market trends. This doesn't add up, she said, highlighting the charts. Their acquisition costs are triple industry standards, and there's no clear path to scalability. I nodded, flipping through the technical section. The startup's claims about proprietary health algorithms seemed too good. Joshua confirmed my suspicions when he revealed the patents were mostly repackaged open source tech with minor tweaks. If we invest based on this, we're exposed to fraud risks, he warned, his voice steady as the discussion deepened. A chill ran through me. The company name Vital Health Solutions rang familiar. I cross-checked the founder details in the appendix. There it was. Kayla Green, my sister, listed as CEO. The pieces clicked: her recent boasts about expansion, the office lease in Seattle's tech hub, the magazine feature my parents had raved about. She had submitted this proposal through channels, completely unaware that her little sister's online hobby controlled the fund evaluating it. Andrew leaned in. The board's pushing for quick approval, especially with the connection to Nicholas Lee's wife as their CMO. That added another layer. Brianna Lee, married to our chairman, had joined their team recently. Her involvement explained the fast track, but it screamed conflict. I kept my expression neutral. But inside, years of resentment surfaced. Kayla's dismissals at every gathering, her way of turning conversations to her real business, while mine was just playing around. We wrapped the meeting with a list of red flags: unsustainable burn rate that would drain the investment in under a year, market saturation ignored in their analysis, and leadership gaps evident in their unverified claims. Crystal suggested pulling back, but I held off. Let's see how this plays out tonight, I said. The family dinner was hours away. Perfect timing to test her. I dropped subtle hints about the funding. Watch her reaction. If she gloated or pushed further, it would confirm what I suspected. Her greed blinded her to the flaws. No direct confrontation yet. Just observation. It wasn't revenge. It was due diligence sharpened by personal history. As the team left, I stared at the proposal again. The rain outside mirrored my resolve. Tonight, I'd gauge her arrogance up close, then decide how far to let this go. The deal hung in the balance, and so did our fragile family ties. That meeting only confirmed what I'd suspected for years. Looking back over the past decade, 3 key moments shaped my decision to stay silent about my success. The first turning point came right after college when I returned to Bellevue for a family barbecue. Kayla, always the center of attention, mocked my early online real estate investments in front of everyone, calling them kid stuff while our parents nodded along. Brandon Green, my father, adjusted his glasses and said computers were fine for fun, but real business needed handshakes and storefronts. Victoria Green, my mother, examined her garden while adding that I should find something stable like Kayla's marketing job. Jonathan Green, my brother, stayed quiet as usual. Their laughter stung, stripping away any desire to share my plans. Right then, I vowed to build my fund in secret, proving myself without their validation. No announcements, just steady growth from my small apartment setup. The second turning point hit 5 years into my venture during a holiday visit. By then, my fund had hit its first milestone with a few million under management, but I played it down as hobby trades. Kayla pulled me aside one evening, asking for advice on a side project. She had a health app idea she claimed was original. She described features I'd already implemented in my property matching algorithms, probing for details under the guise of sisterly chat. I gave vague responses, but weeks later, she launched a similar concept at her company, crediting inspiration from family talks. Our parents praised her innovation at the next dinner, while I swallowed the betrayal. Jonathan noticed my tension but said nothing. I chose patience, focusing on expanding my team instead of confronting her. It taught me that sharing even hints could lead to exploitation, reinforcing my wall of separation. The third turning point unfolded 3 years ago as my fund swelled to $15 billion in assets with offices overlooking Lake Union. Kayla announced her pivot to founding Vital Health Solutions, convincing investors with pitches that echoed strategies I'd casually mentioned over coffee. She even introduced a proprietary matching system, suspiciously like my real estate tech, later revealed as lifted concepts when her team reached out anonymously for consultations. This time she bragged about it at gatherings, positioning herself as the family's entrepreneur while dismissing my online tinkering. Samantha Reed, my best friend who knew the truth, urged me to expose it. But I held back. The repeated takings fueled a quiet resolve, not blind anger, but a calculated wait for the right moment when her overreach would backfire on its own. Those instances built my armor, turning patience into strategy. Now with her proposal in my hands, I saw the perfect alignment. 2 weeks earlier, the proposal arrived through standard channels. Kayla had submitted it blindly, listing Vital Health Solutions as a promising health tech venture seeking $150 million in funding. She had no clue that her application landed directly with my fund, where I reviewed every major deal personally. Andrew forwarded it to the team without fanfare, marking it as another routine evaluation. Crystal and Joshua jumped on the analysis immediately in our conference room. We started with their financial projections, which Crystal tore apart first. The first flaw hit hard. Their user acquisition model assumed zero churn rate in a saturated telehealth market, ignoring real-world dropout statistics from competitors like TEDx. This alone would bankrupt them within 9 months, she noted, circling the optimistic graphs. Joshua followed with the second issue. Their patent claims for diagnostic algorithms appeared fabricated, relying on public domain AI frameworks without substantial innovation. Legal exposure here is massive if investors sue for misrepresentation, he added as we dug deeper. The third problem emerged in their operational structure. Overhead costs ballooned from premature hiring, with salaries for a 50-person team eating 40% of projected revenue before any product launch. Crystal ran the simulations showing how this mismatch would force constant fundraising just to stay afloat. The fourth flaw centered on market positioning. They dismissed regulatory hurdles from FDA approvals, claiming agile compliance that didn't exist in practice, leaving them vulnerable to fines or shutdowns. Joshua pulled up recent cases of similar startups failing under scrutiny. The fifth and most damning was their revenue forecast, built on unverified partnerships that our CHEPs revealed as loose verbal agreements rather than binding contracts. Without locked-in deals, this is smoke and mirrors, Crystal concluded, stacking the reports. But the real complication surfaced when Joshua flagged the CMO, Brianna Lee, wife of our board chairman Nicholas Lee. Her recent hire explained the unusual push for fast approval. Nicholas had mentioned her exciting new role casually in our last meeting. This tied personal stakes to the evaluation, creating a clear conflict that could taint our fund's reputation if ignored. Sitting there, I connected the dots. Kayla's submission wasn't coincidence. Her network likely pointed her our way. Unaware of my position, the flaws screamed incompetence, but her history of overpromising made it personal. This was the opening I'd anticipated, a chance to enforce consequences through pure business logic. No emotion, just facts exposing her shortcuts. I outlined the plan over coffee with the team. We'd hold off on rejection until after the upcoming family dinner. There, I'd probe her confidence subtly, mentioning industry trends without revealing my hand. If she doubled down on her claims, it would seal the decision. Joshua suggested documenting everything for the board while Crystal prepared fallback options. By the end, our strategy was set: observe, then act decisively. The proposal sat like a loaded opportunity, ready to shift the power dynamic forever. The plan was in motion as I drove to my parents' house in Bellevue. The Sunday family dinner started warmly with my mother, Victoria, setting out her signature pot roast, the smell filling the cozy dining room. My father, Brandon, cracked open a beer, joking about the Seahawks game while my brother Jonathan scrolled through his phone, avoiding the usual chatter. Kayla arrived last, her tailored blazer and confident stride screaming success. She launched into her update without missing a beat, boasting about Vital Health Solutions securing a $150 million funding round. It's practically signed, she declared, her eyes gleaming with triumph. Oblivious that I held the reins, I tested her as planned, leaning forward casually. Those health tech deals require airtight patents, right? How's your algorithm holding up against competitors? Her smile faltered briefly, but she recovered fast. Ours is cutting edge, better than anything out there, she insisted, waving off the question. My parents beamed, eating up her confidence, while Jonathan glanced at me curiously. I pressed further, mentioning FDA regulations and market saturation subtle probes to gauge her honesty. Her answers grew vague, her tone defensive, confirming what our analysis had uncovered. Then it came. Kayla stood, glass in hand, and splashed water across my face. "Stop pretending to be the president," she snapped, her voice sharp with mockery. The table burst into laughter, their eyes cutting with familiar disdain. I wiped my cheek, heart steady despite the sting, and pulled out my phone. "Andrew, cancel all $150 million in deals now," I said calmly, my voice low but firm. Kayla froze, her glass slipping slightly. She rushed over, dropping to her knees. "President, please don't," she stammered, panic replacing her bravado. The room went silent, my parents exchanging uneasy glances. I stood, brushing off my damp shirt, and left without a word. By sunrise, I was back in my Seattle office overlooking Lake Union, calling an emergency meeting. Crystal Brooks, my CFO, spread out updated financials confirming the startup's projections were even worse under scrutiny. User retention assumptions defied industry benchmarks. Joshua Wong, our legal counsel, flagged additional risks tied to Brianna Lee, the CMO married to our board chairman Nicholas Lee. Her involvement deepened the conflict of interest, as Nicholas had been pushing for approval without disclosing her role fully. "If we proceed, we're risking investor trust and legal fallout," Joshua warned, flipping through case studies of failed health tech ventures. Crystal nodded, her analysis aligning with mine. The flaws weren't just numbers, they were a pattern of overreach, with Kayla's name at the center. I scheduled the board meeting for noon, knowing Nicholas would fight hard. The dinner had exposed her arrogance, but the real test was coming. My resolve hardened, not out of spite, but from a need to protect what I'd built. The boardroom was set for a showdown by noon in our downtown Seattle office. The panoramic view of Lake Union contrasted with the tension filling the air. I stood at the head of the polished table facing 8 board members, their leather portfolios open and expressions guarded. Nicholas Lee, our chairman, sat at the far end, his jaw tight, clearly bracing for what was coming. I launched into the presentation, my slides detailing Vital Health Solutions' critical weaknesses. The user retention assumptions defied every industry benchmark, projecting impossible loyalty in a cut, throat-to-wealth space. The patent claims leaned on recycled tech, risking lawsuits from misled investors. Operational costs outpaced revenue projections by 40%, a death nail for sustainability. Regulatory ignorance around FDA compliance invited federal scrutiny, and their so-called partnerships were flimsy verbal promises, not contracts. Board members leaned forward, some scribbling notes, others exchanging glances. I kept my tone clinical, letting the numbers speak. Nicholas interrupted halfway through, his voice sharp. "These are early-stage issues. Many startups pivot successfully with proper funding." I countered calmly, pointing to case studies of failed ventures like HealthSync, which collapsed under similar overpromises. Crystal Brooks backed me up, her data showing the startup's burn rate would exhaust our investment in 10 months. Joshua Wong added legal context, citing recent fines against non-compliant health tech firms. The room grew heavier as the evidence stacked. When I called for a vote, hands raised swiftly 8-1 for withdrawal. Nicholas, the lone dissenter. His face reened, his objection personal. "Brianna has secured major client interest," he insisted, referencing his wife's role as CMO. "You're dismissing her network's value." A board member, Clara Evans, shook her head. "Verbal interest doesn't outweigh these risks. We can't bet our reputation on it." Nicholas slumped, his influence undercut by the unanimous pushback. After the meeting, I stepped into my office, the weight of the decision settling in. I called Samantha Reed, my best friend, needing her grounded perspective. "They laughed in my face last night," I admitted, my voice steady but raw. "Kayla's been taking from me for years, and now she's built a house of cards." Samantha listened, then said, "You did what was right for your fund, but you know this will burn bridges." I nodded, though she couldn't see it. The personal fallout loomed, but protecting my investors' people's pensions. College funds came first. Kayla's recklessness couldn't jeopardize that. I decided then to confront her directly. No emails or intermediaries. She deserved to hear it from me. Scheduling a meeting at her startup's office felt like the final step in a long-buried plan. The board's vote had locked in the outcome, but facing her would test my resolve in ways the numbers never could. I hung up with Samantha, staring out at the lake, the ripples steady under the gray Seattle sky. 2 days after the board vote, I walked into Vital Health Solutions' sleek office in Seattle's Tech District. The reception area screamed ambition, glass walls, modern art, and a logo etched in frosted panels. Kayla's assistant led me to her corner office where she sat with her co-founders, Zachary Ford and Amber Chen. Kayla stood to greet me, her smile professional but wary. "Didn't expect you here," she said, gesturing to a seat. Zachary, their tech lead, adjusted his glasses while Amber, the operations director, flipped through papers, her expression guarded. I didn't sit. "I'm here about the $150 million funding," I said, voice even. Kayla's eyes lit up, assuming I brought good news. "We're ready to finalize," she replied, leaning forward. I held her gaze. "I'm Alex Green, president of the fund you applied to. We're withdrawing the investment." The room froze. Kayla's smile vanished, replaced by confusion. Zachary's jaw tightened while Amber set her papers down slowly. "You're what?" Kayla's voice rose. "This is personal, isn't it? Because of Sunday night." I shook my head. "It's business. Your startup's claims don't hold up. User retention is fantasy. Patents are recycled. Costs are unsustainable. Regulations ignored. Partnerships unconfirmed." I listed each point deliberately, watching her confidence crack. She stood, slamming her hand on the desk. "You're sabotaging me because I called you out for pretending to be some big shot." I stayed calm. "I've run a $15 billion fund for years while you dismissed it as a hobby. Your proposal failed on its own merits." Her face palled as the truth sank in. Zachary shifted uncomfortably. "We may have overstated some technical capabilities," he admitted, avoiding Kayla's glare. Amber nodded slightly. "The hiring pace was aggressive, and we didn't lock in those deals yet." Their confessions confirmed everything my team had flagged. Kayla's anger turned desperate. She dropped to her knees, clutching the desk's edge. "President, please don't," she pleaded, her voice breaking, echoing that night at dinner. The sight hit harder than I expected, stirring a flicker of guilt. But I remembered her years of taking ideas, credit, trust. "You built this on lies," I said firmly. "No amount of begging changes the numbers." She stood, eyes blazing. "You'll regret this. I'll make sure everyone knows you're vindictive." I turned to leave, pausing at the door. "Tell them what you want." The data speaks for itself. Zachary and Amber exchanged looks, their silence louder than her threats. Kayla's voice followed me out, a mix of fury and desperation. But I kept walking. The elevator doors closed, shutting out her words. Back in my car, I gripped the steering wheel, the weight of the confrontation settling like Seattle's constant drizzle. This wasn't about satisfaction. It was about protecting what I'd built from her reckless ambition. The fallout came swiftly. Within weeks, Vital Health Solutions unraveled without the $150 million funding. Kayla's startup couldn't sustain its bloated payroll, and investors pulled back after word spread of the withdrawal. Local tech blogs in Seattle buzzed with headlines, one reading, "Health tech hopeful crumbles over faulty claims," citing anonymous sources from our board. Kayla was ousted as CEO by her own team, who scrambled to salvage what remained. Zachary Ford and Amber Chen issued a public statement admitting to overstated projections, distancing themselves from her leadership. By the next month, the company filed for bankruptcy, its office lease terminated, leaving the once shiny space in Seattle's tech district dark and empty. Kayla's personal collapse followed. Unable to secure another executive role, her reputation tarnished by the high-profile failure, she sold her upscale condo in Belltown at a steep loss. Seattle's competitive housing market offered no mercy, forcing her into a modest rental on the city's outskirts. She hired a lawyer to sue my fund, claiming I acted out of personal bias to sabotage her. Joshua Wong handled our defense, presenting our due diligence reports in court. The judge dismissed the case in under 10 minutes, ruling it had no merit, a common outcome in Washington state for baseless corporate lawsuits. Kayla was stuck with legal fees, piling onto her financial ruin socially. Her network shrank, former colleagues avoided her, and invites to industry events dried up. My parents, Brandon and Victoria, reached out repeatedly, their voicemails pleading for a family meeting to work things out at a tense coffee shop sit-down in Bellevue. My mother's eyes were red, her hands clutching a napkin. "She's your sister," she said, voice trembling. My father added, "We didn't know how big you'd become. Can't you help her?" Jonathan, sitting quietly, just watched me. I shook my head, voice calm but firm. Kayla made her choices and I made mine to protect my investors. There's no going back. Their disappointment hung heavy, but I'd spent years shielding my achievements from their dismissal. I walked away, choosing my integrity over their expectations. Samantha Reed met me later that week, her perspective grounding as always. "You didn't destroy her. She built a flawed empire," she said over drinks, the Seattle skyline flickering outside. I nodded, the truth settling in. My fund thrived, closing 2 new deals worth $300 million combined, our reputation intact. Kayla's downfall wasn't revenge. It was the natural consequence of her overreach. The lesson wasn't about winning or losing family ties. It was about standing firm in your truth. Liam Kin, as I'd learned, wasn't just about business. It was about refusing to let others exploit your silence. By cutting ties, I freed myself to focus on what mattered. Building a legacy untainted by betrayal. The drizzle outside my office window felt lighter now, a reminder that some storms pass when you hold your ground. But I still wonder, was integrity worth the cost of